So we're back with another Hearthstone card, and it is absolutely bonkers. I don't know what happened designing this set, but it seems like card after card is just so creative and crazy, because Whizbang is back, but he's not bringing with him normal, old, boring Whizbang decks. He's bringing with him experimental decks, and what that means is you're going to have 12 different decks that you can get off of Whizbang, and they all have some kind of crazy theme or mechanic or special bonus. They're just silly. I'm going to go ahead and pull these up. You can freeze frame it here if you want to go through these now. We'll talk about them more here in a minute, but they each do something silly or OP or just absolutely nuts. So how this works is, much like before, you add Whizbang into your deck list. You're only going to have the one card in the deck. You don't add anything else. It locks off once you get the Whizbang in there. And then when you queue into a game, it's going to randomly select you one of these 12 decks. There is one for every class and a neutral one that basically just copies your opponent's deck as well. Now, that said, we don't have the list, or at least I haven't seen them yet, so we don't know how good these are going to be. We're kind of guessing, number one, what they're going to be about in some cases, and guessing at the power level as well. But I'm going to generally say, I just don't think they would ever make Whizbang like a 5-star card. I think he's going to be average at best, but 5-star for fun, of course. So that said, let's run through all these decks and try to get an idea for what they're going to be. So we got Deck of Villains, a warrior deck. This deck is evil, and of course that full capitalized letters there makes me think about the League of Evil from the Rise of Shadows kind of Year of the Griffin era. So I bet this deck is like lackey stuff. It's probably not just literally a pile of different villainous cards. That might be the sort of filler and the supporting pieces. I'm sure there will be some Dr. Booms in there. I get Dr. Doom and Dr. Boom confused now that I play a Marvel game. There'll be some Dr. Booms in there, but I bet there will be some lackey cards as well. Maybe even pulling from other classes or something too. Who knows? There's doesn't have to follow the rules that it's warrior only stuff. So that's kind of neat. We got Shrunken Deck. This deck only has 20 cards, and it has a picture of some of the like dual type cards. There's a Murloc Dragon and a Murloc Elemental, which makes me think maybe this is some kind of like swarmy Zeus style, minion based deck. It might be that the artwork's not necessarily a big clue here, but 20 card decks generally is a good thing. Sometimes that sounds like a bad thing to people, but that usually means your deck is a little bit tighter, denser with good cards. The card quality is higher on average, so your draws are better on average, and you might be able to like curve out really aggressively. But who knows if it is aggressive? It may not indeed be. The Rainbow deck is for Death Knight. This deck has cards from all classes and spell schools, which that sounds super fun. Feels like that could have maybe been a mage thing as well, but we have Rainbow DKs, of course. Different kind of rainbow than Mage's Rainbow, but again, remember, this is not just like a random assortment of cards from all classes and spell schools, which would be pretty terrible because you just get things that didn't synergize well. This is a predetermined list of 30 cards that will hopefully at least be synergistic and play relatively well. You got the questing deck for Shaman, and it says your deck has 3 quests, which what that really means, it looks like, is you get this card called Quest Accepted, which is its own quest on turn 1, and it says begin 3 Shaman quests. So let's take a quick look, of course, at the Shaman quest cards. It will presumably be these 3, since those are the 3 that exist currently. You got Command the Elements, which is about overload stuff. You got Corrupt the Waters, which is about Battlecry stuff, and you have Unite the Murlocs, which is about Murlocs, which I'm sure there are certainly, Murloc cards that cross these 3 off. So there might be some mix of Murloc and regular Overload and Battlecry stuff trying to complete all 3 of these quests. I don't know that the rewards hold up that well in the modern era, especially like Megafin and the Murloc thing. It's like, okay, it's just a big Murloc and a pile of resources, Battlecry is going off twice. Could still be good if the deck has the supporting stuff for it, but you do have to spend 2 mana on that if you remember. And then what I guess what's his name here, the Stormcaller Brucon's pretty good still. Your spells casting twice, but that doesn't really play that nicely with Murlocs or Battlecry cards, so might be hard to get enough spells in there to really pay that off. Deck of Treasures. This deck has 5 duels treasures in it. We don't know what those dual treasures are going to be. Obviously some of those can be OP, some of those could be rather weak. It's probably going to be a mix, but that might be a little bit draw dependent. It is rogue, so could get rather spicy. The septuplet deck has 7 copies of Astral Automaton. That can be crazy. Automaton Priest can be scary when it hits, and if they have the right support cards to help you like tutor those or make additional copies, that one seems like it could be very good. Deck of Heroes. This deck is heroic. That one's a little bit less obvious. It's clearly got some kind of, League of Explorers stuff with the 4 heroes there, so maybe different versions of Elise and Reno and Bran and Sir Finley. Could be stuff from the opposite side of the year of the Griffin Evil lackey side of things too. Deck of Discovery for Druid. Your deck is filled with cards that discover Druid spells and minions, and that's going to be 0 cost cards called Moment of Discovery that discovers a Druid spell, a Druid minion, or a neutral minion you can afford to play. The way that is written out makes me think you're going to get one of each option, as opposed to, not like you're never going to get like 3 spells, for instance, which the neutral minions being in there, it does feel like it hurts you, because very often just discovering a random neutral minion is going to be pretty bad. So it's really going to feel like, choose one of 2 spell or druid minion in many cases, but it's going to be hard to make those fit situations. But the fact that it's 0 means, you can kind of just play multiples and kind of try to line up a curve and stuff. Might still be pretty nice. Copycat deck, of course, this is a copy of your opponent's deck. That actually might end up being one of the more powerful ones, because you just get good standard format decks very often. Deck of Wishes. This contains 3 wishes that give you the perfect card. If they're like the wishes we'd seen from previous single player stuff, those are 0 mana spells that are basically Zephyrus's effect, which we know Zephyrus can be powerful. I've heard some complaints about Zephyrus lately, but still can be high utility. That's in Demon Hunter, so who knows what the supporting package is. Maybe some kind of spell spam with some cheap spells in there could be nice. Deck of Legends for Hunter says this deck has 2 copies of Legendaries. And it's showing King Mukla, so there must be 2 Muklas in there. Again, how many? It doesn't say, like the whole deck's not necessarily Legendaries. Could be 15 Legendaries, could still be supporting stuff. It's just impossible to guess how powerful that might feel. And then Deck of Wonders for Mage. Cards in this deck transform into random playable cards each turn while in hand. So you can see here, those are the morphing card. Each turn this is in your hand, transform it into a random playable mage or neutral card. It does say playable, which is kind of interesting. So you're going to find stuff that's always on curve or cheaper, which does help, because early in the game, otherwise you could just get so many random high cost things. So that's pretty cool. That definitely will make that lower friction. I bet that's going to feel much better to play because of that playable keyword. But ultimately, random cards in hand, it's not going to find a game plan or synergy very often. It's going to feel kind of haphazard. So I don't know which of these look the strongest to me at first glance. Things with defined game plans, septuplet deck, copycat deck, maybe questing deck seems like it has a pretty well driven game plan. Evil and heroic decks seem like they could be built to be pretty good. Stuff that's risky is like Deck of Discovery, Deck of Wonders, maybe even Deck of Treasures with the dual stuff, because it's a little bit draw dependent. So I don't know, mixed bag here for sure, but they all look fun. They all look like they'd be really enjoyable. The triple quest indeed sounds really cool. I like the random ones as well. That sounds enjoyable. So, after reviewing these in more detail, my opinion stands here that the Whizbang would probably be average at best. I just can't imagine there's enough consistency here. There's enough. They just don't have incentives to make this a great card, for instance. They probably want it to feel very playable, of course. They want it to be a good experience, a fun experience, just not the top of the ladder sort of thing. So, love it, dude. Love to see Whizbang. This can be a really awesome budget way for people to play. So I hope it is at least good enough that people don't feel like they're sacrificing their ladder experience for all this fun. Maybe able to still do quests successfully, climb a little bit here and there. But I am beyond excited to play Whizbang here and try out some of these cool decks. Splendiferous Whizbang is a 3-star card. Yeah, so only 1 card revealed today. Based on the previews on the website as well, it looks like this might be the thing all week. I could imagine some of these are coming from the Play Hearthstone Twitter. We've kind of seen before where they do like 1 legendary, so maybe not a lot of card reviews this week. I'm also going to be heading out of town a little bit. I think I mentioned this in the last review as well. So some of my reviews here and there may be spotty, just depending on where I'm at and whether or not Blizzard gives me stuff early. So stay tuned, I guess, but I'll do my best to get as many card reviews out as I can, even if it's just one card at a time. I don't know if they'll all take quite this long to go over, but this one definitely deserved its own review. This is absolutely crazy, and I like that it seems like there's just no limits on the creativeness of the designs this expansion. There is some wacky stuff already. Curious to see what else lies in store. That said, thanks as always for watching, and until next time, game on.